Hello, good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. On behalf of ACPI, Asociación Cordobesa de Profesores de Inglés, we would like to give you a warm welcome to this event, ACPI Pearson event. And we are very grateful to Pearson for bringing Luciana Fernandez to Cordoba, quite a luxury, and also to Facultad de Lenguas for letting us use this wonderful state-of-the-art auditorium and for giving us the opportunity also to be online so that many people can join us this afternoon and enjoy this wonderful presentation. Thank you to Maria Belén Oliva, our vicedecana, and so I give you the chance to say hello.
Okay, thank you, Sandra. Thank you very much for being here and for the people who are behind the scene or behind the screen. It's a pleasure for us as Facultad de Lenguas to have you here. I am a teacher of English too, so I think we need to foster this type of activities and events. Here at Facultad de Lenguas, we also have a Secretaría de Graduados. So even if you are not a graduate from this institution, you can join us in all those opportunities we bring and we know that you and we need in order to improve our careers. So if you feel like being part of the database and you are not getting the information we send all the time, I think there is a QR code there on the screen. You can scan it. There, the only thing we'll ask you to do is just write down your name and an email address so that we can contact you through email, okay? But today I want to thank also you, Luciana. Thank you so much for being part of this opportunity. Pearson, thank you very much. And ACPI for organizing all this. They are all the time promoting these types of events that enrich our profession. You know, the world is changing rapidly, and our classrooms are changing rapidly. So I think that teachers need to adjust their teaching practices to this brave new world, we can say. The difference is that the world changes, whether we like it or not, but our practices change if we like them to change, if we want them to change. So this is an excellent opportunity. Thank you very much, all of you, and enjoy the meeting.
Thank you so much. Okay, so thank you, Belen. Well, so I will introduce Luciana to you, although she doesn't need an introduction because most of us know her very well for her long professional, all the talks that she has been to and all the congresses. We've seen her so many times. Luciana Fernandez is a graduate teacher of English and a teacher educator who has 30 years experience in the field of education. She has specialized in methodology, teaching practice, early years education, literacy, and critical thinking. She holds a diploma in educational research from University of Cambridge, Faculty of Education. She has also 2 postgraduate certifications in teaching for comprehension and thinking cultures. Luciana has presented at numerous congresses and conventions, both nationally and internationally, and was awarded an IATEFL scholarship in 2016. At present, she is an academic consultant for Pearson, and she is an educational advisor at several bilingual schools, locally and internationally. She has been both a teacher and head teacher at several institutions in Buenos Aires, and has been a teacher trainer at ESARP, English-Speaking Scholastic Association of the River Plate, for the past 20 years. And she's here today to talk to you about rethinking student and teacher roles in these new horizons that Belen and all of us are experiencing nowadays, and we have to be ready to be the best teacher we can for this new reality. Okay, thank you, and all to you, Luciana.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Hello, everyone at home, because some people are in their PJs and slippers. Hello, everyone. Well, let me begin, first of all, by saying a big thank you to ACPI, my beloved ACPI. It's not the first time that they invite me to do something, and of course, a huge thank you to Pearson for making it possible, and thank you to Facultad de Lenguas for these amazing premises. Don't you agree? Are you comfortable? Lovely place indeed. So welcome everybody. Today we're going to be talking about rethinking teacher and students' roles in this new changing landscape. Would you agree this is what's happening? Are we facing a landscape that is constantly changing? So the first thing I want to share with you is our agenda for today. Today we're going to begin by reflecting upon this changing landscape that we have been making reference to. We're going to be talking about what it takes to face what we've got to face. That is to say, we're going to be talking about experiential learning and what it takes. We're going to be talking about career readiness. Let me tell you something. It's our huge responsibility to work on career skills. How do we do that? Why do we have to do that? And of course, I will also be talking about project-based learning. There are some very young people in the audience. Shame on you, how dare you? And probably many young people at home. And then there's the rest of us who happen to be vintage. And I wouldn't call you any other name precisely because I belong to that category. All right? So probably some of you go like, wow, project-based learning, quite a new thing. Is it new? No, it isn't. But why is it more relevant than ever? And last but not least, I will be talking about something that we cannot overlook, which happens to be assessment. All right? All that before you say goodbye today. So a very ambitious agenda ahead. Shall we get started, everybody? Lovely. So, a changing landscape. I brought a couple of images for all of you here to see if they trigger anything in you. All right? I would like those of you at home and those of you who are here with me to tell me any words coming to your mind as you look at these images. Sadness. Wow. Sorry? Family life. Striking a balance. Wow, could you manage? If anybody could, let me know. All right? Anything else coming to your mind? Sorry? Virtual classes. Loneliness. What a word. Loneliness. Virtual classes. More. Change. I would add abrupt, if you allow me. Abrupt change. Any other word coming to your mind? Technology. Anything else? Oh, ChatGPT. We're going to be talking about ChatGPT. And so, of course, COVID-19, overnight, you were in the classroom, probably many of us with so many years of teaching experience saying, what else can happen to me? And all of a sudden, you were at home, your students were at home, and you had to keep going. And of course, lockdown, with everything that lockdown brought to our lives. Sadness, loneliness, anxiety, and many, many, many things that at this point, we all know what we are talking about. And that was a teacher trying by all means to have an audience involved. And then the student and dealing with the class and interacting with mates, interacting with the teacher. And once the pandemic was over, once you were saying, I'm a survivor, AI. And there is one thing I want all of you to reflect upon with me. Don't you ever say what else can happen. Don't say it, because when you do, something will happen. So, I want a couple of reflections before we begin, all right? This global adversity, okay, acted as a catalyst. Look at this word. A catalyst for educational institutions to go for innovation. And there is something that I want to say to all of you here and at home. I've got an issue with the word innovation. Because today, I want to reflect upon what innovating in education really means. I have the feeling that we are just associating innovation to technology. It's just a feeling. I'm thinking aloud. So, oops, they warned me about this. So, one of the ladies over there, when I said, what words are coming to your mind when we looked at the images, said technology. Of course. Technology has been leading the change, but look at this. Yes, we needed technology. We thanked technology because it was thanks to technology that we could keep going, right? But look at this. The use of technology can be only as good as the one using it. And that's where I've got something to say. Is it a matter of technology, or is it a matter of methodology? Or is it both, hand in hand? And I see the gentleman going like, you seem to agree with me. And I hope that those of the ones that are at home are saying, yes, it's true. Technology on its own is not enough. So this begs the question that is driving our talk today, all right? This is the question, this is what has been, spinning around in my mind. Is enough support and readiness among educators and students to accompany this that is going on? You know what the question is? Were we teachers and students ready for AI and for all of a sudden going virtual? My feeling is that we were not ready. We were not ready. Our students were not ready. And my other question is, what have we learned? What have we learned from the year 2020 and the year 21. Or we were eager to go back, you know, because I heard it many times, like, I hope this is over so that I can go back to my comfort zone. So, am I going very fast, very furious? You just let me know. So, I want to discuss with you a couple of key elements to thrive in a changing landscape. As you know, that I go for educational research, and everything I'm going to be sharing with you are kind of things or answers to questions which are brand new, because all this is pretty new if you think about it. What's going to help us thrive in a landscape which is more fast changing than ever? Because the landscape for teachers has always been a changing landscape. But the landscape in the past would give you more time. Today, once you get adapted to something, something else will come up. And if you don't change with the times, then you are doomed to tragedy. And so which are the key elements? We're going to be some of the key elements, because otherwise you will have to stay with me until 3 a.m. Some of the key elements: experiential learning, which we are going to look at in depth. Career readiness, another key element. Communicating in a hybrid environment. This is happening more and more, and it has come to stay. And of course, the strong need to review our practices. And so these are the things we're going to be looking at together throughout these 2 hours, all right? Ready to move on? Awesome. Incorporating experiential learning. So my question for all of you now, and for the ones who are watching us, and you can start typing if you've got something to say as I ask questions, is what do you think experiential learning is? What does it sound like? What does it involve? Learning by doing. You see everybody's body language. Learning by doing. Any other word? Or hands-on. First-hand experiences, you know. Engagement. Active learning. Have you heard about it? These are buzzwords, aren't they? These are buzzwords. How do we make them a classroom reality? So, as you very well said, and in simple words, experiential learning is learning through direct experience, or, as the gentleman said, learning by doing. And one of the things that I like the most about this is that experiential learning gives learners the possibility to acquire skills and knowledge through first-hand experiences. You are not told. You learn by going through the experience. But it's not enough to have your hands on. There is a next stage that we were talking informally about, which is reflecting upon those experiences. Because it is when you get the chance to reflect that learning happens, all right? So it's not just providing first-hand experiences. It's also providing the opportunity to reflect upon what happened during the experience. And of course, new ways of thinking and getting to conclusions. And why not getting, as a result of the reflection, questions? That's why we sometimes call it a cycle, you know? Because the result of the reflection might initiate again, why not, a new experience and a new reflection. So, because you know, learning is experience, all right? Learning is experience. Everything else is just information. One of the things that I have always been worried about is that we know this. We know that learning things by heart is not enough, don't we? I'm not telling you anything new. My question is, when I go to the classroom, When I go to the classroom, and you must have heard I've got 30 years in this, and I watch, teachers, and I'm an advisor at schools, and I still have the feeling that we expect information. And we are not pushing students beyond that. And I'm going to bring something very new again. Bloom's taxonomy. Does it ring a bell? For the love of God, we've seen Bloom's taxonomy how many times? Telling us, hey, remembering is there. Get students to do more than remembering. And I'm going to put everybody to the test now, those of you that are at home and here. Apart from remembering, we need our students to do what? Before, comprehend. I am a mother of 3, a survivor. And I'm not a very easy mother to do homework with. I would realize very quickly when my kids were doing homework if they understood or not. It was just by asking them a question, or asking them to give me an example, or how would you use it, or explain it to me in your own words, and my kids were like, then you didn't understand it. So it's about remembering. It is about understanding. Somebody else said it is about applying, analyzing, applying, which is actually using that which you remember and you understand in a brand new context. Transferring that, analyzing with a critical mind, hopefully. Analyzing, evaluating, and creating something with that knowledge. And if you allow me, this is where I've got a question for reflection. Are we providing opportunities for all that to happen? I leave it up to you. So, this is not over. This is just the beginning. We are talking about experiential learning. As we move on, then we are going to see how we do that in the classroom. But another key element for us to thrive in a fast-changing landscape is career readiness. Now, I want each and every of you and everybody at home to take a minute to think if when you left school, you felt ready to face the world. You thought you were ready. Just as when you were a teacher and they gave you your first teaching position, you thought you were ready. Do you remember that first day? What could possibly go wrong? I know my theory, I read books, but what happened was not in the books, right? So the thing is that the world is changing very fast. And you must have heard how many times that we are educating students who will have jobs that haven't been invented yet. If that doesn't give you anxiety, then nothing will. There's not a single education document that does not say that education prepares for life. What life? It changes all the time. So we, as a generation of teachers facing this world, we could have the great excuse to say, look, if I cannot anticipate what I am getting them ready to, then I give up. But an excellent teacher of mine said, there are certain things which are timeless. Whatever the world invents, you're going to need that. One of them is being a critical thinker. Critical thinking, a timeless skill. But let us look at what we mean by career readiness, all right? Career readiness is the process of preparing students of any age with the essential skills that they need to find, acquire, maintain, and grow within a job. And let me tell you something. I feel this is an urgent need. our students are not leaving school with career readiness. And guess what? It's our responsibility. So today we are also going to look at how we develop career readiness. Now, career readiness is a concept we need to look into. What exactly are we talking about when we talk about career readiness? We are talking about critical thinking and problem solving. Now, those of you who are surrounded by students all the time, don't you feel that they are gullible? My students go like, do you know what gullible means? They believe everything. So I was telling you that I'm a mother of 3 and at home there's a rule. If I tell you, where did you get that from? Don't you dare answer from the internet. Because it's kind of obvious to me. I want you to tell me where exactly you took that from, who said it, when did they say it, why did they say it, and why did you decide to believe it? All in all, I want you to have a critical mind. So critical thinking, something that again, it's a buzzword, but how do we develop it? Problem solving. Have you heard about the crystal generation? Solve it for me. No. You solve it. Being a problem solver. How do we develop such a skill in our learners in the language classroom, by the way? We're going to be talking about that as well. Teamwork and collaboration. I don't know if you share this with me, but they don't know how to work with others. And when you're out in the world, that is what they expect from you. Let me tell you something, or let me ask you something as adults you are. How easy is it to work with others? You probably say, but I'm so adorable. Yes, but it doesn't depend on that. It depends on interpersonal skills, being flexible, accepting something that probably was not your original idea, and not fighting. And I tell you something, and again, let me go to a personal example, but my 19-year-old, when he started university last year, that was his biggest issue. Everything he had to do collaboratively with others. And he came from a school where everything was mostly on his own. So guess what? He felt so frustrated. He felt so angry. He fought, and I'm pretty sure it was not just his reality. And let me tell you something again. Collaborative teams is not the same as putting students together. I'm talking about a team, which is completely different from being a group. I can put students together. Haven't you noticed that students have group work and they don't get together? My youngest son comes home and said, I've got group work to do. Oh, really, I say. When are you going to gather? No, we have already divided, the task into parts, and I'm going to be doing this. No idea whatsoever of what the others are going to be doing. That is not collaborative work. So again, the question, how do we get students to work collaboratively? Hold your horses, coming soon. What else? Digital technology. I have heard a lot of teachers say, what am I going to teach students about technology? They know it all. I see some faces. Do they use technology in their lives? Students? Yes. All the time, but for other things. When it comes to doing research, when it comes to learning, that's where they need our help. All right? Now, this 24/7 access to information that they have, they don't know how to handle. And that is our responsibility. More about career readiness, leadership. How to become a leader. Okay? And what being a leader implies. Because it's not a matter of giving orders, right? It's not a matter of telling others what to do. Being a leader is a completely different thing. And when you've got collaborative work, leaders can change. Have you seen the Snow Society? If you haven't, homework. Because one of the interesting things about the situation, which is depicted in the movie, is how there are different leaders in different moments. This is what happens in a collaborative team. I don't want to be a spoiler, you know, in case you haven't watched, all right? So professionalism, work ethic, okay? And of course, career management and global intercultural fluency. Aware of others. When I was a little girl and I was studying English, I studied English in the hope that one day I would travel to an English-speaking country. You know? And I learned about the detached and semi-detached houses and the double-decker buses and the 5 o'clock tea, and then you travel and you say, what the heck? All right? Now, the truth is that our students do need language skills, but they definitely need cultural sensitivity, you know? Because today, this generation is going to work with people from the world, from home, in their PJs. And English is going to be the language they will use to communicate with others, but if you don't have that sensibility, cultural sensibility, then you are doomed. So as you can see, apart from grammar, vocabulary, the verb to be, prepositions, conditional sentences, we've got tough work ahead. Are you still with me? Please don't feel overwhelmed. I know you're thinking right now, why did I come? This lady is telling me everything I have to do, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. All right? So, communicating, remember this other key element? Communicating in hybrid environments, just as it is happening right now. One of the things about the pandemic is that we were in lockdown as teachers, but we could still get help from others. One of the things I liked about the pandemic was this concept of communities. Because we felt so lonely. Who said loneliness today? You were so lonely, and then how amazing was it to participate in a webinar and see that other people, and probably in remote places of the world, were going through the same thing, you know? So this question of technology and the opportunity, all right, the opportunity to be with people who you don't see is amazing. You wouldn't have thought about this in your wildest dreams. It has come to stay. But again, how do we integrate it? How do we integrate it? And I brought for you, which is probably paving the way to everything we are going to discuss today, which are the 7 attributes of a hybrid learning environment. One of the feelings, again, that I get is that once the pandemic was over and we mostly returned to institutions, the hybrid thing died out a little bit. Let's see how we can keep it going by looking at these 7 attributes, which we are going to be looking at one by one. Atmosphere of continual motivation. Ah, motivation, what a word. It's in every speaker's talk. How to motivate your students to learn grammar. I want to see that. Motivating students through blah, blah, blah. One of the things that I always want to clarify is what do we mean by motivation in learning? Be careful with motivation in learning, because motivation in learning it's not, yes, the simple past. The motivation we are talking about is the student understanding why the simple past is worth being learned. That's the motivation neuroscience talks about, you know? Because when you don't see the point of learning something, you don't learn it. Whereas if you say, you know what, this is worth my effort, you go for it. So one of the things we are going to be discussing together today is that you can achieve this motivation through problem-based and project-based learning. The frameworks for this career readiness that we have been talking about. So hold your horses, we are getting there. Foundation of student responsibility for learning. How many times have we heard about learning autonomy? Or students being responsible for their own learning. Ah, how nice. And then the classroom. How do we really get the students to own the learning? Well, sticking to routines, self-assessment for the love of God. Be careful with self-assessment. One of the responses I get the most from teachers is, they don't know how to self-assess their work. Newsflash, they don't. Can they be taught? Oh yes. How important is it that you can look at your own work to make decisions for true learning? So self-assessment, goal setting. Goal setting. Today on the plane, I was reading a book that had nothing to do with education. It was about, nutrition. And it talked about goal setting. And it made me smile because it said, goals need to be smart. Again, the vintage. Ooh. Specific, measurable, achievable, time-based, realistic, all right? So goal setting, scheduling how they will use their time. One of the things I noticed the most when my kids were at home during lockdown was that they didn't know how to manage their time. All of a sudden I'm at home. There is not going to school at 8 and then you've got math at 9:30 and then now you were at home. And my students, well, they became my students, but my kids did not know how to manage time. Time management is very important. Organizational skills are very important, Monitoring my progress. Becoming aware as a learner that I am making progress or that I am stuck. And most importantly, if I am stuck, how do I get out of where I am stuck? And of course, being resourceful and not having the teacher as the only resource, I didn't have the book. So how did you solve it? I didn't have the book. All right? So being resourceful, self-advocating when they need help, identifying when help is needed, and knowing where to find it. Am I going to give you a couple of hints on how to achieve this? Hopefully. Next element, landscape of opportunities for academically rigorous learning. What are we talking about? A combination of carefully curated, I love that, learning, practice, application, reflection, and assessment. So let me tell you something, colleagues, here and at home. This is what we need to plan for in our lessons. How are we get them to have their hands on? How are we going to plan so that they reflect on the experience? How are we going to plan for assessment to truly happen? Because assessment are strategic stopovers where you stop to think about where you are coming from, and where you are going to. And our students will not do that with a click. We need to plan for that. So we are going to be looking at that. And one of the things that we probably also hear the most is that apart from all the things we have to do, our students need choice and voice. I don't know why we are still teaching with so many things that we have to take into consideration. Choice and voice. What does that mean, and how can we achieve it? Coming soon. So far, everybody? Lovely. Climate of executive function. Have you heard about this? Executive function. This is also becoming a buzzword, okay? Student success will depend greatly on a climate of executive function, that is to say, a student that is proactive, a doer, a maker, a designer, a solver, somebody who questions, not somebody who is sitting expecting me to tell him or her. Culture of social and emotional learning. You are familiar with this, aren't you? Right? You know, I remember once talking to a teacher and saying, oh, on top of everything, she said, now the emotions. Excuse me, when wasn't it about emotions? It has always been about emotions. What social and emotional learning means is that emotions are there, we need to manage. We need to identify the emotions and manage them efficiently. It's not my field of expertise. You know, there are excellent professionals who are experts in this, but this is, learning is social. We learn from others, we thrive in collaborative settings. No man is an island. All right? No man is an island. Jumbo Joby. Now, network of purposeful and productive facilitation of learning. This is students working with others, students working with the teacher with the students, everybody collaborating, you know, and being facilitators. Have you ever heard that on top of all the things that you have to do in this life, you have to be a facilitator? You are wondering, how on earth am I going to fulfill all these roles? Okay, we are lecturers sometimes, but we have to be facilitators, and today we're going to discuss how. And last but not least, structure of meaningful data-driven learning. That is to say, you know, there is more than data. I like the word evidence. Your students are constantly giving you evidence of what? Evidence of learning or evidence of lack of learning. We've got to do something with that evidence. And most importantly, we have to help them become aware of that evidence so that the decisions are taken by the teacher as far as teaching is concerned and taken by the students in terms of learning. But all this is what we're going to be plunging into. So far, are you alive? It's Friday and your body knows it. All right, so let us now move into the core of what has gathered us here, and also what has many other teachers at home watching us. The need to review our practices. Sandra, please remember, you are the one who will let me know when I need to make a stop, all right? Reviewing practices. Now, one of my conclusions is that in such a changing landscape, we've got two options. We stick to what we know and what we have always done, no matter what, or we move forward. Now, one of the things that happened with the pandemic and with AI, shall we talk about AI a little bit? Just when you were recovering from the pandemic, coming back to life, AI. And I don't know if this is your case, but I started hearing about ChatGPT. It was there, you know, ChatGPT. You know when it gets closer, ChatGPT, and you're ChatGPT. Okay, what is it? AI. Everything started, you know, oh my goodness. Now, educators and institutions adopted mostly 3 positions towards AI. I want you to be very honest and tell me where you are, all right? First position, technofuturism. Do you know what that is? You are blinded by the lights. AI, the flashy new thing. I love it and I'm gonna use it. Technofuturism also includes the, oh God, we are gonna be replaced by artificial intelligence. Many people went through that, like, oh no, we're not going to be, I need to choose another career. This is replacing me. And let me tell you, going back to Bloom's taxonomy, if you are the type of teacher who is constantly expecting students to parrot information, you've been replaced, darling. And you were replaced a long time ago. All right? Now, if you are another kind of teacher, then no can do, amigo. But we'll go to that, okay? So, technofuturism. The next one. Lock it. What does it sound like? Oh, no, chat. No. Ban it. It's a sin. If you dare use AI, you'll see. Lock it. But then there was a third position. I love the name. Vintage innovation. I haven't invented it, just if you're thinking. Vintage innovation, which is obviously a happy medium, right? That is to say, I'm not going to be blinded by AI. I'm going to look at AI with a critical eye, but this eye, not the one of the AI. I'm going to be looking at AI with a critical eye. I'm going to review my practices in the light of AI. And I am not going to get rid of what was working already. Because, you know, sometimes this is old, buried. Why would you? Why would you bury or stop doing something which used to work? So we are talking about the timeless skills. And I'm going to tell you something. I work in other contexts. You know that do you know what first world countries are doing? Striking a balance between lo-fi and hi-fi. Do you know what that is? Not everything is technology and the iPad and the computer. There is pen and paper and cutting and pasting. I am also, you know, a very passionate teacher about literacy. Our students need to hold a pencil. They need to cut. They need to paste. They need the organization of a notebook. All that cannot die. You know, handwriting is important. Handwriting is the only type of writing that stimulates area of the brain that not anything else will stimulate. So, striking a balance, vintage innovation. So we are getting to the point when we are saying, all right, AI is here, virtual learning is here, hybrid communication is here. How do we make it work? All right? And so, if we're going to be talking about reviewing our practices, we are going to begin with an oldie. PBL. For those of you who are very young, this is not new. But you must have heard about it, haven't you? It's like, wow, project-based learning. Let me ask the vintage. You've been hearing things about PBL for how long? Ooh, he said. Your body language is very telling. 80s? So we are talking about quite a long time. PBL is not new, but according to educational researchers, PBL is the answer. Because bringing the possibility for our students to work on projects allows them to develop everything we have been talking about. Career readiness skills, remember? Interpersonal, personal skills, and this question of accountability, setting goals, being resourceful, planning. I've got good news anyways, because I go to institutions, I am an advisor, and I've got good news for you. Not everything in this life is a project. You can record it. But she said, one of the problems with some institutions is that they want to go for PBL and they expect everything to be a project. A project is demanding. A project is time-consuming. And you know what? It's not about making students hate it. It's about making students embrace it and get engaged. So pick your battles. What's worth being turned into a project? And so what we are going to be doing now is we're going to be looking at PBL in the light of everything we have been discussing so far. So a couple of things to remember about PBL. So those of you who say, oh, I know so much about PBL, this is going to be like a mental checkup, you know? And those of you who are not very familiar, this is going to be like important to you. PBL, it is one of the very many approaches to teaching and learning. Is this clear? One of the very many. There are others, which are also very good. All right? It is an approach to teaching and learning. What else? It is a didactic structure that presupposes a final, tangible, and communicative product, the very famous producto final. Have you heard about it? Now, today we're going to be talking about this because I go to a lot of schools and they tell me, oh, and this was the final product. That's not a final product. A final product is not a student parroting information from the internet. So what's going to be a final product? Hold your horses. Now, the important thing to tell you now is that in PBL, we start from the final product backwards. The first thing we know is what the final product will be. I want a confession in the room and at home. How many times probably in our teaching careers we said, well, I'm going to start and then we'll see. This will take us somewhere. Now let me make an analogy. Let's imagine that I'm driving my car and I tell you, Sandra, jump in. First question that Sandra will ask is, where are we going? Let's imagine, Sandra, that I tell you, Sandra will be excited. She will be excited because we like surprises, don't we? Some people don't. But Sandra will say, ah! Imagine I keep driving, Sandra. 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers. Then you will tell me what? Well, Luciana, where are we going? There will be a moment when you will want to jump out of the car because you want to know where we are going. Let's imagine again, Sandra, that I tell you, jump in. Where are we going? But please, get your bag ready. What am I going to put in my bag if I don't know where we're going? Does it make sense? So in PBL, we cannot decide on the final product as we move. The final product is the first thing that is decided. Because once I know the final product, then I can decide on the roadmap. Does it make sense? Good. Now, what else? The final product is established from the very beginning. From the very beginning. For the completion of this final product, students do not possess all the knowledge or all the skills. This is, again, the point at which I've got good news for all of you. PBL is compatible with your teaching. It's okay if they open the door and you are teaching something. You know, sometimes I feel that when teachers get to know about PBL, they tell them, no. The students decide what they want to learn. The students decide what they want to do, and you are wondering, what do I do? All right? Is it okay if I know that for the completion of that final product, students need to learn something new and I teach it? Of course. And again, the different activities that students will be engaged in at a step-by-step towards the completion of that final product. The roadmap, remember? Students, this is really very important, need to refer to their background knowledge and skills, and they will have to resignify them. So in PBL, you always get started where students are. What do they know? All right? What do they know about this? Or what do they think they know? And after the whole thing, what new knowledge or what new skills are they living the whole journey with? A sequence of actions must be followed for the completion of that final product. There's a sequence, a step by step. Oops, sorry. But remember I told you not everything is a project? I'm pretty sure that you wrote that down. Not everything is a project. But we need to bring inquiry into our lessons all the time. Because inquiry is at the heart of PBL. I can bring inquiry-based learning into my classes despite not engaging students in a project. So you must have heard also about the need to have inquirers in the classroom. Students who question. Don't you dream of students who question? And you tell them, do you have any question? And we get so frustrated. So not everything is a project, but inquiry, the more you bring inquiry in the classroom, the more you are creating habits of mind of an inquirer. And let me introduce you to the inquiry cycle. Do you really want to talk about innovation, people? Let's get started with planning for inquiry. The inquiry cycle has 3 moments. The question, the trigger, the puzzle, the cognitive conflict, the I don't know. If you've got a question, if you've got a puzzle, if you've got a doubt, if I say black and you say white and I really want to know who's right, that's going to give, that's going to start the cycle because now I want to take action. What does take action mean? Searching for answers, finding the missing piece, finding out who was right. That is action. And look at this. Look at the 3rd moment. Remember we talked about this? It's not having a question and searching for answers. It is about having a moment when you say, what have I learned? Have you heard about the thinking routine? I used to know, now I know. It's this. I used to know, but what do I know now? What am I leaving the action phase with? With new learning? With reaffirmation? Or am I leaving it with questions that will trigger the cycle again? Let me give you an example. You can have the whole inquiry cycle in one class. Before we read a text, we look at the paratext and we say, what do you think it's going to be about? This text is going to be about, I don't know, the life cycle of butterflies. What do you know about this, What do you know? What is it that you don't know? What questions do you have? Then let's read the text. Let's find answers, and then let's reflect. What has the text given me that I didn't know about? What have I confirmed, or what that I read in the text has challenged my existing knowledge? So inquiry does not depend on PBL. Is this clear? I decide what's going to be turned into a project, but I can educate inquirers all the time. Now, one of the interesting things is that there are different types of inquiry, and here, everybody, attention. there is guided inquiry. Look at this. The teacher is the one that selects the topic, all right? Now what would you like to learn about? No, I decide on the topic. The teacher decides the topic, and the teacher plans the trigger, the question, or the puzzle, all right? At the same time, it is the teacher who creates the context, and it is the teacher who decides on the final task. The final task is a video. Zero democracy. Now, the teacher is also the one who plans the sources of information that the student is going to be interacting with to come up with an aha moment. Let's face it, comfort zone, isn't it? I am not criticizing it at all, the body language of people telling me that we are coming to a stop. I promise I'm going to come to a stop in 2 minutes. I've got 2 minutes and I'm going to use them. Is this clear? Remember when we talked about student voice and choice? Hey! There is. I am telling you the final product. It's a video, but I'm not telling you what to put in the video. I am deciding the sources of information you're going to be interacting with, but I'm not telling you what to think about or how to respond to that. That's your own thinking. So in spite of the fact that I am making a lot of decisions, there is a lot up to you, the student. Now, then there is semi-guided inquiry. We are removing one of the wheels from the bike. The teacher brings the trigger, asks a big question, and gets students to come up with questions in response to the big question. You know? Suggests some sources of information, but then the students also suggest sources of information themselves. And the final product is negotiated. Have you ever told students, the final product can be this, this, or this? You choose. You choose from the options I have given you. And of course, it's negotiated. And last but not least, before they kick me out, there is free inquiry. The student does everything on his or her own. The student decides on the topic, problematizes the topic, decides the sources of information, and decides what the final product will be. Coming soon, in next episode, how do we do all this? Okay, everybody, over to Sandra.
Short break so that Luciana can breathe. A new tool, okay? Estela Beverina from Pearson will show you a very interesting application to study English, right? Is that so? That is called? What is it called? Yeah.
Monday?
Nico,
Monday is
yeah.
Monday English learning.
Okay. Yes, yes, yes.
No se duerman. ¿Sí? Bueno, mientras tanto os voy preguntando si alguna vez alguien usó una aplicación para estudiar algún idioma.
It's generational, I think.
Bien, o sea que ya ahora les voy a mostrar. Esta es una aplicación que se llama Monthly Language Learning.
I'm Luna, your friendly monthly tutor. So, what's your name? Great to meet you.
Bien, ¿lo ven parecido a lo que utilizaron a ustedes alguna vez para estudiar algún idioma? Bien, muy bien. Perfecto. Me dijeron no mires para atrás y yo lo primero que hago es mirar para atrás. Bien, Monly es una aplicación que no viene a reemplazar al docente del aula, sino que es un complemento para el alumno, para el aprendizaje en el aula. Esta solución tiene más de 500 minutos de práctica para el alumno en expresión oral. Bien, Luna, como vieron recién en el video, es por medio de inteligencia artificial el asistente que acompaña en lo que es el desarrollo de las habilidades de comunicación del alumno. También van a encontrar un chatbot de reconocimiento de voz, donde también los alumnos van a tener el desarrollo del vocabulario y lo van a encontrar en todos los idiomas. Bien, a mí me gusta, yo soy práctica y me gusta mostrarles lo que es realmente. Este es el chat en la computadora, es lo que ustedes van a ver la aplicación, donde tienen un mundo con topics diferentes y el alumno puede seleccionar el tiempo que quiere trabajar con cada topics y tiene diferentes lecciones en cada topics. Una vez que finaliza, el alumno va a recibir un feedback de su aprendizaje, ¿sí? Bien. Y WordPress English. Esto sería para aquellos alumnos que quieren desarrollar también todas las habilidades y el vocabulario para la empleabilidad. Entonces, todo lo que sería para adultos viene esta sección. Como les dije recién, los alumnos van a recibir una retroalimentación de su aprendizaje. Lo van a tener inmediatamente, van a saber qué cantidad de frases aprendieron, el vocabulario que aprendieron y el tiempo que dedicaron en el aprendizaje de cada lección. Todo el contenido de Pearson en Monly está alineado a nuestra Global Scale of English y al marco común europeo. Tienen una cuenta administradora o de profesor donde pueden ir siguiendo el aprendizaje y el progreso del alumno de cada idioma. Porque esta aplicación no solamente, más allá de que está enfocado en el inglés, no solamente va a estudiar inglés, sino de más de 40 idiomas simultáneos. En las clases, los alumnos pueden armar grupos y entre ellos jugar y hacer competición de ver quién hace más práctica, porque van obteniendo puntaje. Yo les voy a dejar un código QR para que ustedes, si quieren una cuenta demo para probar Monly, lo pueden solicitar. Gracias.
Muchas gracias.
¿Dejo la de tuya?
No corras, Nico. Uh-huh. Do you remember where we stopped? You do, right? What an interesting question. Like, did you learn English with an app? We didn't know what an app was. We learned with Arthur, Sam, Oh, Jesus, and people go like, for the love of God. Peter and Jane, and other celebrities of the ELT. Of course, we didn't know, we would have never thought of apps. Now, where were we? We were in the need to educate inquirers, remember? And we say, I can bring inquiry into the classroom through PBL, but not necessarily through PBL. I can bring inquiry in other ways. And we also looked at 3 types of inquiry. Guided, remember, where the teacher does the whole thing. Semi-guided, which I like to call a 50-50. And the free inquiry, which is the student doing everything on his or her own. Now, one of the things I always tell teachers is, PBL is not about asking students, what would you like to learn about, darling? Because let's face it, if you ask your students, what are you interested in? Football, Messi, the Olympic Games, or any other thing. And then what's breathing right at the back of your neck? The syllabus, the exam, the simple present and the present continuous. How does that fit with Messi and football? And so, one of the biggest mistakes is to believe that PBL is about the student's interests and that it has nothing to do with my syllabus. It's not up to that. And the problem is that there are different types of projects. That's the issue. There are what will I learn projects. These projects finish with a final product that will allow the student to demonstrate what he or she has learned. These are the ones we teachers of English use the most. I want my students to learn the simple past and this vocabulary, so the final product is going to be an opportunity for that to be used in context. All right? That's one type of project, but then there's the what will I create type of project, and the final product for that is the student creating a new product or having some kind of intervention on an already existing thing. And when I'm talking about intervention, I'm talking about intervention when it comes to a novel or a chair. Have you heard about maker-centered learning? Maker classrooms? Students as makers, students as designers, students as creators. But then, there are what will I solve projects. And these are the projects that begin with a problem. Therefore, I think my microphone is off. No, is it off? I had the feeling, I'm sorry. So if you say it's okay and people at home seem to be okay, then we're fine. The what will I solve begins with a problem and the final product is a solution. But let me tell you about some of my personal favorites. Can I? The so-called passion projects. Have you heard about Genius Hour? Of course you have. If you haven't, then I will be more than happy to share my email address, all right? The Genius Hour, it comes from, you know, the idea that you can give anybody some time that they can dedicate to something that they are passionate about. You know? So students can create something, come up with something, intervene something, and prove that they can be geniuses too. Now, what do I love? What am I interested in? This is the kind of project where you don't decide on the topic. It could be Messi, it could be football. And this is where teachers stress out. And the simple present. Let's face it. One of the problems we teachers have the most is this of motivation, isn't it? sometimes, you know, when there's the Football World Cup, where are their minds? There. So you've got two options again. Wait until the World Cup is over or use it. You use it as the engine and you make the simple present fit there. But one of the things I like the most about passion projects is that they might not be using the simple present that you are so interested in, but they will definitely be using the skills that we talked about when we talked about career readiness. Because they will have to do research, because they will have to reach conclusions, because they will have to quote, because they will have to invent, they will have to decide on a final product to communicate their findings. So there's a lot going on. And it's okay. You can still go back to the simple present some other time. Now then we've got some of the trendy projects, which are the impact projects. And these are projects for which the final product intends to have an impact on other people. Example, an awareness campaign. All right? So there are different types of projects that you can invite your students to be part of. Now, not taking anything for granted, PBL's got stages. First of all, the problem scenario, remember? The question, the puzzle, the I don't know, the I disagree with you, I think I'm right and you're wrong, let's find out. The beginning of it. Are you familiar with Alice in Wonderland? Well, if you aren't, another thing for the weekend, together with the Andes thing. Now, at the very beginning, Alice is with her sister, and she's in a lesson, and she's bored to death. Until something happens. What happens? What does she see? Go back to your childhood, Alice in Wonderland. A rabbit. Thank you. A regular rabbit. A rabbit in a waistcoat and the clock saying, I'm late, I'm late. And Alice first notices. And then Alice, as she looks at this crazy rabbit, begins to ask some questions. Late? Late for what? Where is this rabbit? A rabbit in a waistcoat and a coat. Where is the rabbit going? And the questions that Alice is generating are strong enough to make Alice stand up. And she is so curious that she even chases the rabbit and jumps into the rabbit hole. Do you see what I'm telling you? The beginning is the rabbit in the waistcoat and a coat. And if your topic is the simple present, turn it into a rabbit. That's up to you. And that's the motivation I was talking about. We don't want we want an I don't know. We want a doubt, what Piaget referred to as the cognitive conflict, the missing piece. Because that's the beginning. Then we move on to identifying what we need to find out. What are the missing pieces? And this is very important. There are missing pieces, but there are pieces that exist. I've got background knowledge. I've got existing knowledge, and we tap on that. Every new knowledge builds on already existing knowledge, all right? So what is my schemata? Those of you who have attended other presentations by me know that I cannot do away with this word. Schemata, your prior knowledge, your experience, your assumptions, all that is already there needs to be activated. Now, there is clarity as for what the missing piece is. Now let's go and let's try to the action phase. Do you remember? Let's investigate. Let's find answers. And then do something with that information and reflect on it. So as you can see, we are saying everything we have been, discussing so far as we embrace PBL in our lessons. So let's go to the classroom, shall we? This is the moment you've been waiting for. How on earth do we do this? We begin in PBL and in any inquiry moment with the starting point. Can you see there? If you're going to bring the topic, you present the topic. All right? You present the topic, you bring the question, the very famous pregunta disparadora. Have you heard about that? For those of us teachers of English, it is also known as the big question or the essential question. Have you noticed how some course books are structured like that now? In my times, Unit 1, my family. Inquiry-based books begin with Unit 1, which is about the family, but it begins with a question. What makes a family? Ah, it's different, all right? So, or again, Unit 2, the water cycle. Unit 2, where does water come from? We problematize the topic. One of the things that I like there is that you teachers need to have very clear in mind that it all begins with the presentation of the puzzle, but it's more than becoming aware of what I don't know. It's also becoming aware of what I already know or think I know. And one of the things that I like there are the checked flags. Can you see them? Where do you see those flags? At a race. At the beginning or at the end? It's on purpose. Because what do? We present the final product at the excellent. So, please don't think bad about this. This is because we are triggering. The question that we bring, the big question, the essential question, the puzzle, has dual intention. The first one, it needs to activate schemata. What do you know or what do you think you know? And the other one is becoming aware of the missing piece. And I've got bad news for all of you. This has to be properly planned because it doesn't happen. No, I already know. I'm going to bring the question and then in the class. This has to be planned. This is innovating. How am I going to do this, which is cognitively very demanding? So, the driving question is my favorite name. Big question, essential question, pregunta disparada. But the driving question, I love it. Because the question drives you all throughout the way. Because when you are doing research, you need to have the question in mind, all right? So the driving questions activate the brain. They activate schemata. Let me clarify this. Schemata is not only your prior knowledge, because we always say activate the prior knowledge. We activate prior knowledge, we activate what else? Experience, emotions, feelings, assumptions, all right? That is what our schemata is made up of. And look at this. This activation has to be documented. ABC, when you are activating what students think they know, you need to record that. Because words are gone with the wind. Remember the third phase of the inquiry cycle? Which was it? I will go back to the other slide, and you will leave at the question, action, reflection, young lady. Excellent. How am I going to reflect and tell you, do you remember what you said a month and a half ago? No. If it is properly documented, I can use it. All right? And that is what visible thinking is also about, recording the thinking. So there has to be a moment when students are confronted with, I love that. Can I tell you a short anecdote? Once I was working with kids, and I always write what they say at the very beginning. Right in the middle of the action phase, this child comes up to me and says, Miss, yes, can you erase that? Erase what? He took me to the poster, and he pointed at what he wanted me to erase. Can you figure it out? It was something that he said at the very beginning, which he discovered was wrong. He wanted me to erase it, because that had been already that had changed in his schemata. That's the fabulous thing. So remember, it's very important to keep a record of what happens. And there are lovely protocols for this. And if you send me an email, I will share them with you delightfully. But I'm going to be showing you a couple. An old friend. Are you familiar with this? Of course you are. You know that the funny thing is that when I give presentations in Spanish, it happens to be new to some teachers of Spanish. But this is not because we teachers of English are better. This is because this has been appearing in materials that come from abroad. The very famous KWL chart, what we know, what we want to know, what we learned, I want you to go beyond the resource. This is activation of schemata. That's the cognitive process. What I want to know is becoming aware of the missing piece. And the third column is the confrontation. It's the reflection. Now, there are, you must have heard about visible thinking or visible thinking routines, and if you haven't, you will. Do you know what my feeling is? We teachers suffer from the what else syndrome. Now what else? Visible thinking? Now what else? This is not what else. This is coming to help you. These visible thinking routines like the 3-2-1 bridge are excellent ways of initiating inquiry. You present a topic and you tell your class, instead of asking them, what do you know? Give me 3 words that come to your mind in response to this trigger. Just as I did today with the images. Give me 3 words, give me 2 questions that are coming to your mind, and give me a metaphor or a simile. But if you are working with very young learners, you can even ask them to make a drawing there, because that's the way they visualize it, you know. They are too young to come up with a metaphor or simile. Now, why do we call it a bridge? Because this is at the beginning of the cycle and this is at the end. Now what? After the action phase, if you had to give me 3 words, what would those 3 words be? Did you answer the questions you had at the very beginning, or did you come up with new ones? How do you see it now, or what simile or metaphor would you use? An excellent thinking routine. And there is something I need to say. If we call them thinking routines, they are not to be used once in a blue moon. They are meant to be used frequently, because the aim is that they generate habits of mind, of good thinkers. So far, it's more Friday than ever to you, isn't it? Let it be part of the, this is innovation. Luciana, but that's paper. If you don't like it with paper, you can do it with any app, you know? But have it. I know, because you told me to hate paper. Yes, some people hate paper, but again, let me tell you about the combination of hi-fi and lo-fi, remember? The students writing and posting and then moving, this is amazing, all right? And another example of how you can initiate inquiry is with the Think Puzzle Explore. I love the question, what do you think you know, more than what do you know? Because sometimes you think you know. Hasn't this happened to you? Like, what do you know? And the student goes, well, I think. That's a little bit of hesitation, you know. So what do you think you know? What questions or puzzle come to your mind? And I love this question. Where might you find the answers for this? Excellent for projects. Because this is already, and also for semi-guided, if you think about it, because the student can think about where he or she might possibly get answers from. Now, the driving question. Houston, we have a problem. I want a confession in the room, and whatever we say in the room stays in the room, and in your houses. We have a tendency to ask other types of questions. Is this correct? Have you noticed that the student sometimes is looking at you, trying to figure out the answer? Like, so it has to be, yes. Is this a living thing? And the student goes like, all right. We have a tendency, or more than the tendency, it's probably what we have experienced the most in the classroom. The easy thing to do is to ask closed questions, you know? The questions that are thought-provoking are difficult to ask, and they need to be planned, you know? And today I'm going to help you with this. Now look at this. These are according to the, you know, that you must have heard in my Sandra said today, I have to read all this about you, but you must have heard that I am into thinking cultures, you know. One of the things that you have to do is this. The framework for teaching for comprehension says that when you bring the trigger, you need to get students to see and notice. Observation. What do you see? What do you notice? What makes you curious about this? Or, students make connections and they say things. What makes you say that the very famous justifique su respuesta? And of course, how does this relate to, or what is happening here, you know? Or how else can we work on this or look at this? What's at the heart of this, or what lies beneath? We need to break free from the what can you see. Another confession in the room. All right? Now, I'm going to give you this, and this is going to save your life. According to research and experts in PBL, these are excellent driving question starters to begin to move towards designing good questions. All right? If you use these starters, it will work. For example, what would happen if? Let's imagine that my topic is water, or, you know, water as a natural, resource, or taking care of water, and I want to start by problematizing the topic. What question can I come up with? Those of you at home also think. What would happen if? What would happen if we ran out of water? What would happen if there were no water in the plant? There you've got a question. All right? Now, some months ago, we were working at a school where I'm an advisor, and the question by the teacher was, for 5-year-olds, what's independence for you? One of the best answers we got is, having a bath all by myself. That's independence for a 5-year-old. The concept of independence, you know? So, one of the things they sometimes tell you is that an open-ended question can never begin with what? Wrong, as you can see. Look at that. How should we? How should we? Let's imagine that I want to deal with a topic on pollution. Problematize it for me. Those of you at home also thinking. I know it's Friday, but do your best. The topic is pollution. I want to start with how should we? How should we solve the problem of pollution? All right? That's a beginning. And if you allow me, it's an excellent problem-based project. The problem is here, pollution. How do we solve it? And then we've got, how could we? How does affect? How does pollution affect the planet? Or what makes something? What makes the earth go round? One of the questions I saw in a course book was, what makes day and night? Isn't it awesome? What makes day and night? And one of the things I love the most about students is that they go like, and that is the cognitive conflict per se. All right? Now, how would you? How can we make this better? typical in maker-centered learning, you bring an already existing thing and you tell them, how can we make this better? All right? Even in, the action of intervening a chair, for example. Or, for example, how can we make better? How would you do if you were typical? How would you do this if you were? Or what are the best options in order to stop pollution? Or how can we convince, remember, impact projects? Or how could you, or why does work this way? So I want you to give it a try, but if you use these starters, it will not fail. You will get a good question to begin inquiry. Now, obviously the driving question depends on the type of project. Remember when we went through types of projects? So solving a problem, how can we, what would be the best solution for? Educational, how can we teach about, or convincing others, how can we convince? I remember once I used to be the head of a school and I was sick and tired of accidents during break with the ball, so I banned football. And the students hated me. And they would come to my office every day. Miss Luciana, can we play football? No. And they would try because kids can really insist. And once I told them, you know what? Convince me so that I give you permission to go back to football. Oh my goodness, they tried. I saw an opportunity to get students to, they promised el oro. But you know what? They were really trying hard to persuade me. A general topic, what does mean? Like, remember, what does independence mean to you? Opinion, should, typical for teenagers. Should cell phones, oh my goodness, and there you go. Divergent, what would happen if, or scenario-based, if you were. So the type of trigger depends on the type of project. Now, fantastic. PBL, we've got the trigger, we've got the question, we managed to bring the rabbit, we managed to get the students to do. Remember that motivation is not the one you expect, okay? One of the things about PBL is that, like no other approach, it develops career readiness. So it is false that only one person cannot work on a project. You can have solo projects. But the fun of it is that students have to work with others. So the moment comes for the very famous collaborative teams. All right? Now, the collaborative team, for it to be collaborative, and so that you can truly develop career readiness, is about students working on goals, applying grouping strategies. You've got an active role, it's not up to them. How are you going to intervene? And of course, structures and roles. But I've got a question for all of you and those of you at home. Who decides on the teams? Is it the teacher? Is it the student? Is it a matter of luck? What do you say? I know you're expecting me to give you the answer. I won't. Teachers over there, I decide. Is there anybody who says, bueno, they might decide sometimes? It depends on the age. It depends on the context. Could it be luck also? What researchers and experts in PBL say is, let this reflect life. Sometimes you work with the people you want to work with. But sometimes, let's say it, many times you don't choose. You would have never chosen those people, but there they are. And sometimes it's, now you, and now you, and now you. So ideally, sometimes get students to decide who they would like to work with, sometimes impose it on them, sometimes make it a matter of luck. Independently of whether you choose, they choose, or it's a matter of luck, one thing remains. And what is it? Roles. There are very famous pictures of a man digging a hole and everybody watching. And I don't know if you have seen students in action whenever they have to present a final product. Mariana is absent. Nobody knows Mariana's part. And on top of everything, Mariana had some of the very famous posters that they have to present. The idea is the following. If you really want to develop collaboration, and if you really want to work on career readiness, as we discussed today, this is a mandatory part of collaboration. Assigning roles. Now, if it is guided, guided inquiry, sometimes you as a teacher can bring the roles yourselves, Who's going to be the team leader, or who's going to be the facilitator, or the team captain, or the skeptic. I love it. But eventually, you should have the team become aware of the different things that are involved in the completion of the final product and distributing the tasks among themselves. This distributing the tasks is not like my son does with his partners. I do this, you do that, and then we do not talk to each other until we present the final product. We've got different things to do, but we meet regularly and we all inform each other, just as it would happen in any job or career, all right? And that is the challenge. And one of the things I like the most, because there is plenty of material online about roles in PBL, but teachers can be so creative. Can I give you an example? Some time ago, I was in Colombia giving a presentation, and we were talking about roles. And one of the teachers said, it was a presentation in Spanish, she said, oh, one of the roles that I came up with is el despejadudas. The what? I said. El despejadudas. And I found it interesting, had never heard about it before, asked the teacher to explain. And she said, you know what? When students are working together, they have doubts. And they would all come up to who? To the teacher. Everybody around her with a million questions. And she said, no. You know what? In each of the teams, there will be a person in charge of communicating the doubt or doubts that the group came up with and communicating that, being given a possible answer, and then communicating it back to the group. And these despejadudas would not only go to the teacher, these despejadudas could also go to another group, to a classmate. And the teacher reduced 30 students with questions to 5. How amazing is that? And that despejadudas had to engage in active listening to the group, communicating clearly that, and then going back to the group with the answer. Teachers are always better than any book, if you see what I mean. You can come up with roles, then they might decide on the roles. What cannot happen is that roles are not assigned. And one of the things I see in institutions, and I'm talking at all levels, teachers, teacher trainees, secondary school, primary, kindergarten, the idea that students need to have this explained to them. Like, I love it when there are, name tags, like the tags, so that you as a teacher know who's who, and the role is reminded to them, Posters in the classroom with the duties. This is like the job description that you get when you get a job. Because the typical thing at a job then is I didn't know I was in charge of this. All right? So this is career readiness at its best. But apart from that, the collaborative thing is not about distributing tasks. It's about other things that you can see on the screen right now. It's about setting goals, getting organized, and meeting regularly to check that we are making. That is teamwork. That is career readiness. That is innovation in education, people. And look, there are excellent organizers. Like, the description, the to-dos, student name, the role, group project planners, the objectives, What are the objectives? What do we have to do? Who's part of the team? What's my role, all right? And this is the most important thing. How regularly are we going to meet so that if you are doing part of the task and I have another one, we meet and we get to know. And let me tell you something. You've got to plan for this to happen. This is career readiness in action. Now, if you send me an email, I've got very nice things to share with you. But this is, you know what, that's one of the good things about being a teacher today is that you have access to this, and that there are very generous teachers that share, all right? So a group project planner with the name, the contact, the project planner again, ideas, sketches, the contact, the to-do lists. Keeping, a record of what we have to do, what we have done, what we still have to do. Tell me about organizational skills and time management. This is what we are talking about. Still alive and kicking? Good. Now this group, poor thing, they've got hard work to do, don't they? There is a driving question that they need to find an answer to, and this group is going to go through stages because they have to present a final product. Do you remember? Good. They've got to plan that final product, and then they have to search, all right? Google, the oracle of truth, and now ChatGPT, all right? So one of the problems that we have is that we teachers, we used to have a problem with esto se lo hizo la madre, and what do we say now? Esto se lo hizo ChatGPT. But I've got a message of hope to end the evening with. We can always win the race. Students will have to search, but the problem that this generation has, because when I was a little girl and my teachers wanted me to investigate, I would go home praying that the information that I needed would be in the 3 books that I had on a shelf. But this generation simply needs to go to technology, and technology will provide. But they have to select out of that ocean of information. My question is, do they know how? And of course, they have to evaluate the quality of the information. Ha, ha, ha. I asked my kids, who said that? When did they say that? Where did you take that from? Very important questions, don't you agree? So evaluate the quality and then synthesis. Project Zero from Harvard University calls the final product Final Synthesis Project. Proyecto final de síntesis. When you synthesize, you put together in a new whole created by you. With your voice, your conclusions, your thoughts, your findings. It's not merely factual, if you see what I mean. So this group has to go through a lot. And of course, this is one of the, I don't know if you are visual, but this is the best picture, isn't it? Because I've got this piece, and I've got this piece, and then I've got this other piece, but now we have to put the pieces together. And we have to do it together. So if Laura is absent, I don't remember if it was Laura, but if Laura is absent, I think it was Mariana, thank you. But if Mariana is absent, it's okay because we can handle. Mariana is very irresponsible. But then we talk about it, Mariana. The group will keep going. And so, when our students have to go through the action phase, and today when we started this discussion on, my goodness, how do we thrive in this changing landscape, one of the things that we said is that when the pandemic, came on stage, we were not ready. We were not digitally literate, nor were our students. And being digitally literate is knowing where to obtain information. It's about locating the information. Where am I going to find it? It's about selecting information. It's about collecting information, evaluating information, and organizing that information. And here is my point. Students don't know how to do that. They don't know how to do that. We will never be replaced in this aspect. And look, because this is also very telling, they've got to process the information. Otherwise, what do we get as a final product? All right? They've got to process the information, and processing the information implies, today, one of the girls, when I talked about Bloom, they said, analyze. It's doing something with the information that I am given. It's analyzing, it's comparing. It's identifying the key informations for the love of God. This is not to make you feel depressed, but this is where we need to work. Innovation, let's face all these problems. This is what innovation is. Students need to organize again, reorganize all the time, and re-elaborate the so very famous, say it in your own words, or paraphrasing if you want it. And so, inevitably, Bloom's taxonomy, embrace it. For those of you who are saying, who is this revolutionary of the new era? No revolutionary, but this is beginning to plan deliberately for this in the classroom. That's the revolutionary thing. Getting students to go beyond remembering to understanding and applying and analyzing and evaluating and creating. And I have an invitation for you. Oh my goodness, Bloom's taxonomy. I want you to see Bloom's taxonomy from another perspective now. Can I? PBL, or a project. Where is the final product? For the creation of the final product, students need to have made decisions. Because when you synthesize, you make decisions. This I'm going to leave out, this I'm going to include, this I'm going to put here. That is what evaluating is. For the creation of that project, you must have analyzed what? All the sources of information. And obviously, you must have applied that you understood or think you understood. And obviously, you need to remember. So the fantastic thing about embracing project-based learning is that if you truly think about the final product, and if you do the things we're going to be discussing in a little while, you will be truly getting your students to develop the so-called critical thinking and the career readiness skills we mentioned before. Because the final product shouldn't be this. And let me tell you something. There's a lot of this at school. At school, at university, and at the teachers training college sometimes. Y me lo aguanto what I'm saying. There's still a lot of this. And learning is not this. Anybody can be a parrot, you know? So I have an invitation for you. How do we avoid the parrot effect? Again, it's up to us. I have a problem with the final product. I don't like the word product. I don't know what you think about it. Product is like maquette. Once I was reading about material, and I cannot recall the author, but one of the authors referred to the final product as the final stage. And I liked it. Because when you think about that final product as a stage, it will make you think about certain things. For that final product, who will be the actors? I know what you're thinking. Luciana, the students. Yes, but that's not what I mean. I mean, the students, which students? From your class? A combination of students from different classes, in groups, in twos? Who? Who are the performers? The other thing that you will be invited to think is the type of final product, because there is a whole world beyond giving oral presentations, but oral presentations are very important, right? Public speaking skills. So what's the format of the final product? But this is going to force you also to thinking about what? The props. More than the props, which of course has to do with drama, is what you will need, the resources, the materials. But there is one thing that is missing here. Who will be the audience? Because you need to have an audience in mind. I remember my son once coming home saying, we're working on a project at school with that motivation that we love from teenagers. And he said, I have to explain this to first graders. And I was. The fact that he was thinking how he was going to explain that to very little kids meant that he was aware that there was an audience. Have you seen students giving presentations sometimes? You hide at the very back and they look at you. And they ignore the audience. Now, who's my audience? I'm talking to them. And so people, very important that we create a culture in the classroom. What do we have to do, group? Is it a video? Is it a dramatization? Is it an oral presentation? What will we need? Let's come to an agreement. How can we need help if we need it or if we get stuck? And who are we going to be showing this to? And I promise I'm getting to the end. Remember we talked about this? All right, innovation. Innovation in the classroom is all this, obviously, with a big help from technology. But just when we thought we had overcome the pandemic, AI, ChatGPT, a new oracle of truth, a new helper, isn't it? So what do we do in such a reality? Remember the three options? Technofuturism, oh no. Or the lock it, if you dare use ChatGPT. Or the what do I do with ChatGPT, which is part of my students' lives. And I'm pretty sure it's part of your lives already. All right? So, I want you to think about this, dear everybody and everybody at home. We need to rethink assessment. We need to rethink assessment, and this is probably the biggest challenge of all in this fast-changing scenario. Oh, my goodness. We are talking about a shift in assessment, people. And look at this, a major shift from assessment of learning to assessment for learning. And it's not just a change in a preposition. We are talking about moving from assessing to engaging students actively in assessment. Look at this. Rethinking assessment is not neglecting the old. ¿Viste que Finlandia? Doing away with exams. Exams are part of the educational system and they will keep on being part of it. So it's not about doing away with tests. It's understanding that testing is part of the equation, the big equation that assessment is. And of course, instead of using assessment just for quality, let's use assessment to develop these skills that they will need for life. Let me show you. Look at these pictures. Technofuturism, we've been replaced. Oh no, the AI replacing AI as an ally, but my suggestion is that this is what's going to happen. AI is here, moving so fast that it is scary, isn't it? But it has come to stay. My first piece of advice, and let me tell you something, people, I am a colleague of yours. I am not an expert in technology, and I am as afraid as all of you. We need to take it step by step, but we cannot deny it. And look at this. What has happened to this dog? He's been told it's a bad dog. And the dog goes up to the teacher and says, excuse me, not the teacher, the owner. The owner, I'm going to need more specific feedback on my formative assessments. Let's translate this, right? What does the dog want? Or what is it that the dog doesn't understand? What am I doing wrong? Why am I a bad dog? And most importantly, what can I do to move from being a bad dog to becoming a good one? Any resemblance with students? Sometimes students don't know why they got what they got. And what's even more serious, they couldn't care less. Especially if it is a passing mark, right? So what the dog here says is, I need you to tell me where I am and where I need to get so that together we can make informed decisions in pursuit of progress. So Tina Blythe, who happens to be coming to Argentina pretty soon, says that the assessment of students' work should come from the teacher, from students' reflection upon their own work, and from students' reflection upon their own work. In a nutshell, let me introduce you to the assessment triad. High quality and innovative assessment is about teacher assessment, the teacher assessing the students, self-assessment, I assess my own work, and peer assessment, I assess the work of my peers. But I'm going to tell you something. None of this is possible if there is no clear criteria against which to judge the work. So, criteria, clarity of criteria is essential so that we are all looking at the same stuff. So, clarity of learning goals, periodic stopovers to reflect upon where we are and where we need to go, always with clarity of the goals. Adjustments. The adjustment has to do with adjustment to teaching and learning. If I realize or I get evidence that a student is not learning, I need to make adjustments in my teaching, and probably the student has to make adjustments in his or her learning. And of course, the learning goals become the criteria. If I tell you that by the end of this project you have to, demonstrate that you understand the concept of independence, then when I judge your work, that is already the criteria against which I'm judging your work. And this takes us to refreshed assessment practices. This is one of the greatest fears, isn't it? Who's doing the work? All right? And I would like to move from the fear to really creating a partnership, AI as a partner. And look at this image, which is everything. Can you please interpret it? Or try to? Those of you at home as well. What can you see? We've got a race and the? Oh, look at this. You see the human as a model and? Okay, and technology is running after. Has anybody got any other interpretation? Humans can take the lead. Humans can win the race. We can still win the race. So I'm going to tell you something, and with this, I'm going to be saying bye-bye. This is very fresh research on assessment practices. We can win the race, and it fully depends on us. And that is the innovation I want to talk about today. When you give students a task, the path to the completion of the task can be very simple. Or it can become a maze and be a little bit more challenging. Who can make it more or less challenging? Let's see how, shall we? According to fresh research, and this is 2023 and a half, we as teachers should go in 4 different directions. Direction 1, from just expecting descriptions to expecting multimodal explanations. Hold your horses. Direction 2, from a mere literary revision to a literary analysis. Direction 3, from presenting ideas blah, 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 to defending ideas. And direction 4, students working with AI on pedagogical alliances. Shall we see how? I promise it's going to be smooth. Ay, for the love of God. Direction 1. Let's imagine that I'm working with my students on learning the components of an engineering system. All right? Students will have to instead of asking them, what are the components of an engineering system? Remember, no maze. I can ask them, for example, to analyze that system in a given place that they are familiar with. Look at this. Which are the components of an engineering system? ChatGPT, my best friend ever. Engineering systems typically consist of several components which will easy or maze? Easy. Identifique un sistema de ingeniería en el Colegio Oliver Twist de Buenos Aires. Hasta mi última actualización en enero de 2022 no tengo información específica sobre el Colegio Oliver Twist de Buenos Aires ni sobre los sistemas de ingeniería. In other words, do it yourself. What changed? The question, the task. Direction 2, from a literary revision to analysis. Stop asking questions such as, what is Pride and Prejudice about? Pride and Prejudice. Let's face it, they will not read it. Unless they have to. You see what I mean? So, you know, Pride and Prejudice is a novel written by Jane Austen, blah, 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 blah. But what connections can be made between Chapter 2 in Pride and Prejudice and the class discussion which took place on July the 2nd? ChatGPT, as an AI language model, I don't have access to specific class discussions or events that occurred on July the 2nd, nor do I have that is to say, hacelo vos. What changed? Again, the task. Direction 3, from presenting to defending ideas. When I was studying PBL abroad, I remember there was a teacher who shouted a lot and said, the problem, she shouted even more than I do, the problem is not the maquette. The problem is what we do with the maquette, she said. And then she said, if I want to, then I'm going to turn the maquette into a thesis. And when the teacher said that, I understood everything. There is no thesis that is presented to teachers and teachers saying, what a lovely thesis. You passed. What do you do with a thesis? You defend it. And so what research says is it doesn't matter what type of final product is it. But what you have to do as a teacher to innovate is stop looking at the product and looking at the product and the process. And the way in which you do this is by bombarding them with questions. I'm not telling you that you have to ask all these questions. Pick a couple. But what have you learned as you came up with this final product? Or what difficulties did you encounter? And how did you solve them? Or what makes you say that? If it is a maquette, why did you decide to put this on the maquette? What decisions did you make? What is the maquette trying to show? And that's how you will know they know. That's how you will know they learn. And more importantly, this is how they will become aware that they have learned. So, can you compare or contrast these two? Can you give me an example? Which is not the example on page 12 of the book. An example coming from your own understanding. More questions that trigger thinking. This is the true innovation we want to talk about. And direction 4 is about alliances. Don't deny the existing of AI. The complexity, and the body language of people is telling me that I've got to finish. The complexity of the task is going to leave any AI tool just as a partner. Now, if you keep on being the teacher who stays going back to Bloom at the remembering or parroting information, you've been replaced, all right? And so, I would like to say goodbye with a poem, can I? But before we do, I want to tell you where the poem comes from. It comes from a teacher. Some time ago, I was, the facilitator at a course on PBL and inquiry and all these things that we have been talking about. And there was this teacher who came up to me and she told me, Luciana, after a long course, she said, you know what, Luciana, I write poems. You do? I said, yes, I do. And I've got a book of poems. A book, I said. And then she told me, can I give you the book? And then in the book, I found this poem that I want to share with you. Can I? To Teach or to Reach, by Marcela Loyoyo. To teach or to reach, that is the question. Whether it is better for the mind to be filled and bombarded by lists, dates, and notions, or to be spurred and ignited by why nots and emotions. To teach or to reach, that is the question. Whether it is better for the kid to be caged and kept in a cute, comfy class, or to be pushed to spread wings and to dare drift and try and err while we watch and guide, always alert. To teach or to reach, to give or incite, to make them repeat or let them decide, to force them to follow or move them to lead, to avoid the unknown or embrace what is free. So the question, oh God, is up to you. Is it to teach or to reach? Thank you very, very much, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you, ACPI, again. Thank you, Pearson. Thank you, Facultad de Lenguas. And thank you all for being here on a Friday evening. This says a lot about your teacher commitment. Thank you so very much.
And also thank you to the people who are connected from home.
Nico and company. Yes.
A big clap for them too. And you that you're here and you were very brave to come and to enjoy this wonderful talk that has given us so much food for thought. I don't know, but I will say what I have clear now. Two things. Mandly will not kick us out of our profession.
But it's a great ally.
It's a great ally. And also, having technology at schools is not a guarantee for innovation.
Definitely.
Right? So we need to know how to use it.
Thanks for sharing your takeaways. I love it.
Very good. So now we are going to raffle. Pearson is raffling 3 courses, teacher training courses, that you will be able to take whenever you can. And these are diversity, equity, and inclusion for teachers. And is it online, Estela? They are online courses. Okay, so if you, sorry, we are using this very old system against the latest technology.
It's hybrid.
Yes, because as Luciana very well said, the good things are not to be get rid of. But the thing is, we wanted to ensure that the people who came here had the opportunity to participate in a raffle. I'm sorry for the people who were at home, but we share it only with the attendees here. So 3 courses, right? Have you included all your names in the bag? Okay, very good. All of you here?
Well, good luck to you all.
Okay, 3 courses. Let's see who's willing to go on learning.
They are
Or
all
who
willing.
will be able to? Okay. Huh? Yes, Luciana, we give you the honor of choosing.
Why do you do this to me? I want everybody to win.
One more thing to do tonight. Okay.
Cross your fingers.
Okay. So, the first one goes to,
And the first one, I have always
and the
wanted
winner
to say this.
is
And the Oscar goes to. Oh, I don't. Leticia Premat.
Leticia Premat. Ah,
Hi,
very good,
Leticia.
Yes, come here.
I am blind. I'm sorry. Very good. And the second one goes to.
We teachers speak very loud, so we don't need the.
You don't need the mic. Eleonora Beatriz Salas. Hi, very good. Clap. Envy is a capital sin. And the last one goes to, oh God, good luck to everyone. Well, desafortunado en el juego, afortunado en el alma. And this goes to Leonel Delgado. Ah, very good. Congrats.
I would like to thank you, the technological boys there behind, for handling and for helping us to have this hybrid event here and online. Thank you, Nicolás Crespo and all the team, and thank you, Facultad de Lenguas, and again, thank you, Pearson. Where are you, Pearson? Thank you, Pearson, for bringing Luciana
My
today.
pleasure.
And, well, go back home and enjoy your weekend. Thank you so much. See you in our next
There's
event.
one thing I want to say. Have I shared my email address?
Yes, at the end of the
Lovely.
presentation.
I just need to say this, but if you do write to me and you want a copy of slides or any resources, I will be more than happy to share.
Thank
okay?
you. Thank you
Just
so
that.
much.
Okay.
And also the people who could not make it today, you can share this info. It will be, this video, it has been recorded. It will be on our channel, ACPI on YouTube. ACPI channel on YouTube. So you can share it with your teachers, with your colleagues, whenever you can. It will be ready for you to use and abuse.
Use and abuse, absolutely.
Thank you so much. Have a nice time. Bye-bye.
Happy weekend to everyone. Thank you so much. Good job. Nico, venía a sacarme esto.